Well, good day, everyone. Thanks for joining for this particular section of anger management and conflict. Um, it's interesting that we're talking about this particular subject on this particular day because as I'm recording this lecture, this is my third go around with this. For some reason, my computer crashed a couple times before, and I had to manage my own anger about that. So just being honest. Actually, I'm recording this outside. Um, I'm sitting in my gazebo. It's a beautiful day. But as I sit here and record, I'm picking up a little hint of fall in the air. And last I checked, fall comes before winter. I love fall. Winter's okay. But I'm reminded of a well, let me tell it to you this way. I was traveling recently to Santa Barbara, California, and I was reminded of a job offer that I turned down in Santa Barbara, California a number of years ago. The day I turned that job down, it was 38 degrees below zero back home. So, you talk about anger management. No, I'm not upset about that. It's just I realize this is a beautiful time of the year and winter is coming. So I'm glad you're aboard here. Let's talk a little bit about anger management, a couple different areas. It's kind of weird trying to define something that we all experience. But let me just say this. Anger really does run a continuum from irritation to rage. What I want you as students to do, if you're willing, is to pay attention, not just to this lecture. I'm talking about pay attention to areas of your own life that, and specifically in the area of understanding and managing conflict, and specifically in the area of anger, where it's possible that you have run the far end of the continuum more than you want to. We all get irritated. There's stuff that happens to us that irritates us. And like the guy in the left lane last night when I was coming back from Knox Presbyterian Church, where I'm an interim pastor, I see a guy, I'm trying to get around on the freeway. He's in the left lane, and I pull up next to him, and he's texting and weaving and texting and weaving. Yeah, that's irritating. I didn't fly into a rage because I don't do that very often. But just pay attention to where you're at right now. Pay attention to the things that, by God's grace, you may need to press into as a result of not just hearing this lecture, but doing some of the reading and processing some of the materials. We experience anger because of some internal things, or maybe some stuff kicking around in our hearts. It's been there a long time and we just get angry about that. Or something external happens to us and we've been, we've faced a bad review at work, or something's going on at work, or something's going on in family, externally, that we just simply need to pay attention to it. Now, the way we express anger, and I'm just going to say at the front end, we don't have any choice. We do need to express it. In a few moments, we'll talk about implosion, which is keeping it all inside, and that's not a good idea. And explosion, which isn't a good idea either. But how we express it is often regulated by laws, social norms, values of the value of the relationship. How important is it that I express to this person how I'm feeling? The book Difficult Conversations, I think, does a great job of giving you a handle on, okay, would this be a wise thing to do, to express my anger to this individual, or should I just let it? There are processes for personally dealing with our anger. Some of us are imploders, which means we kind of keep all of this to ourselves. it implies nobility. I mean, it implies that that's the right thing to do, but it leads to a certain level of depression. It leads to sometimes some passive aggressive behavior. You know, on the inside, we're just steaming. On the inside, we're really, really ticked off, but you wouldn't know it by looking at our behavior. And it also leads to a certain measure of hypertension or high blood pressure. For whatever reason, implosion starts to kind of chew away on the insides of us and causes a number um, of uh, situations in our bodies that high blood pressure, hypertension. One of the reasons I hesitate on this is for some reason, uh, and I realize I run the risk of offending maybe some of you because of this, but this is just an observation I've made as a result of moving here from another part of the country, the upper Midwest from another part of the country. This is kind of a conflict avoidant culture, folks. It's it's a kind of culture where for some reason it is not okay to express anger to someone, so we kind of keep it inside. And I'm just throwing out that caution that if you have a tendency to, to keep issues of anger just completely inside, that's not a good idea. It's just not. There's explosion. That's no good either. You may feel better. You may, quote, get things off your chest. You may have vented, but it leads to fractured relationships, some greater damage control because of emotionality. Harriet Lerner, in her wonderful book called The Dance of Anger, it's it's a book written by a woman for women, but I got to tell you, it's probably the best I've ever read on the subject of anger. But what Harriet Lerner says is when we vent or when we explode, it increases the victimization and it increases the villainization. Let me translate that. It means in direct proportion to our exploding, so to speak, I increase the belief that I'm the good guy and you're the bad guy. Victimization and villainization. Now, you'll notice on Moodle that I put a little YouTube clip from the movie Anger Management, Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler. And there's this scene where they're on the Brooklyn Bridge. I won't spoil it for you. Go ahead and look at it. It's just hilarious. You'll enjoy it. You don't have to post about it. You just have to enjoy it. But watch it and kind of enjoy. I thought it was. I'm periodically asked, well, what about venting? Dr. Rota, is it okay for me just to let my husband know exactly what I feel or to vent? Or sometimes I'll get a call from somebody who just wants to come in my office and vent about somebody else. Um, I'm not a big fan because I don't think the scriptures are a big fan. Seems to be an indication of foolishness. A fool gives full vent to anger, but a wise person quietly holds it back. Now, I don't want to confuse you with that proverb. I do think a wise person also expresses it, but just knows when and how to express their anger. But a fool gives full vent to anger. You know, it's often called, let's just clear the air here. Well, the air doesn't get cleared. It actually gets more toxic and confusing when somebody vents. What it does, folks, too, is it decreases the level of personal ownership in the problem. In other words, if I'm venting, if I'm going off on you, and I'm really clear about how right I am in all this, I mean, how can I? The mind cannot take ownership of that. It's just impossible. If I'm venting, if I'm exploding, if I'm in a rage, if I'm really letting you know what's what and who's who, it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, for me to take any personal ownership in this conflict. Again, we talked about this just a few minutes ago, but it increases damage control, meaning we say or do something in that fit of venting or in that fit of rage that we can't get back. We just can't take it back. We wished we could, but we can't. And you know as well as I do, in moments of rage or in venting, things that are said that you not only can't get back, but sometimes irreparably destroy a relationship. Woman talks about amygdala hijacking, and I want to talk a little bit about personal conflict management for just a couple of moments. Here's the deal. We've been flying this flag all the way through the class, and we will continue to do this in this understanding and managing conflict class. Self-awareness, folks, is huge. When you are angry, when you're in the midst of conflict, it's just a good idea to keep asking, what's going on with me? Why am I feeling this way? What are the beliefs that I'm sending myself about this? What are the things that I need to pay attention to? And in order to get to that self-awareness, you're going to have a strategy of regrouping, which means there's going to have to be in your own personal conflict management some way for you to escape the situation, regroup, and try to discern what's going on. I'll give you an example. This may come as a huge surprise to all of you, but even marriage and family therapists get angry with each other. I married a therapist. I'm a marriage and family therapist. My wife is a licensed therapist. We've been married for 30 years, but I got to tell you, we sometimes get very, very angry with each other. You don't have to jot that down. Just take my word for it. So, I know myself. I know myself well. I know I'm good with words. And when I'm angry, I could say something to Judy that I might win the argument, but I would crush the spirit. So my way of regrouping is to take our little schnauzer, Lucy, and to take her for a walk and just to have her provide an opportunity for me to get out away from the situation and think through what I should say or what I shouldn't say when I come back into the situation. So, when I've taught this class before in traditional settings, what often happens is people will give various strategies they use for regrouping. Everything from listening to music, to going for long walks, to working out, to doing some woodworking out in the shed, to gardening, just something that allows them to regroup. So figure out what it's going to be for you, because what that also does is allows for a certain measure of discernment. These three components are huge. What's going on? How do I get there? And there's times when you might have to bring someone else along. I've got a 2 a.m. friend that I periodically call, and we talk over life together. And if there's something I'm facing in life that's really ticking me off, I'll give my buddy a call and we'll meet over at Caribou, and he'll help me discern what's going on here. What could be the components that are contributing to my anger? What are some things that I should say? What are some things that I shouldn't say? And I also do that with my buddy also. Interesting. The Proverbs say that laughter is good medicine and actually good for the bones. That's true literally, by the way. Laughter is good for the skeletal structure. But here's what I want you to understand. There is power in humor. Not the scripted humor, not laughing at each other, but there's something about humor when we're really, really ticked off that allows that situation to appear differently, to just it makes us feel different, it makes the other person feel different. I'll give you an example. There are times when I'm working with conflicted couples, where I'll make an assignment to them. I said, over the weekend, I want you to go to Comedy Sports. And they'll look at me like, what in the world have we hired to help us with our marriage? But it's true. I'll say, and then come back. The conflict won't be gone. The anger won't be completely gone, but it will be diminished because there's really something. And again, you're going to need to express it. So, some of you who are taking this class are involved in leadership. Maybe you're a coach, maybe you're a team leader, maybe you're a ministry leader. I don't know. But people around you get ticked off. And maybe it's in your job description, maybe it's not, but you are called upon to manage some of that corporate conflict. Same thing. What's going on with me? Why does this person make me angry and that person doesn't? Why are this person's words grating on me and the others isn't? I mean, just self-awareness. Are you staying non-anxious? Are you keeping your cool? Because as we talked about in one of the other lectures, if you don't keep your cool, nobody's going to keep their cool. And if you freak, they'll freak. So there has to be a non-anxious presence about you. And you also get to teach or model healthy expression of anger. I'm even right on the spot in that team meeting saying, Dan, something you said just a few minutes ago has evoked some anger in me. And before it goes any further, I just want to tell you, I feel anger about this, and should we talk about it now or should we talk about it later? You get a chance to model that, and you also get a chance to model direct communication. We talked about this in one of the other lectures, and that is Jesus could not have been clearer in Matthew 18 when he says, if you've got something against somebody else or somebody has something against you, go straight to that person. Directly communicate with that person. I'm just amazed at some of the venues where I have had a chance to mediate conflict, how they'll talk to me as a mediator instead of the person that they need to talk to. And that person that they need to talk to may be sitting right across the aisle from them. So, no kidding, I'll just say, hey, turn and face him and tell him what you just told me, because you really need to have a conversation with him. Again, I'm not talking about scripted humor. I'm not talking about the Spananoli stuff, which really isn't funny anyway. But I'm talking about the power of levity in a group that's conflicted. A number of years ago, to kind of keep up some of my credentials as a mediator, I went to a seminar in Chicago. And the seminar, I don't remember the title of it, but the bottom line of the seminar was the power of humor in conflicted situations. It's fascinating to see how important it is that periodically a group just laughs together. And what I'm going to do, folks, is this. I'm going to put in Moodle a document that I put together, probably better translated, stole. No, I actually did put it together, but a lot of the ground rules I borrowed from other mediators who do a lot of this kind of work. And you'll find that document fascinating. I think you'll find it helpful just as a way maybe for you to think through, how am I going to help other people process their differences. So enjoy. This has been a fun lecture to do, even though I had to do it 3 times on the computer. And again, if there's anything that gets evoked in this particular lecture that you want to talk about, go ahead and email me, and we'll talk about it.